Okay, we can start.
I don't know what I'm stand up.
No, you don't have to stand up. Media colleagues. Oh, So, members of the media, welcome to the media briefing by the mayoral executive. We have a couple of developments within the city and we're here to update you. First to speak will be the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Eugene Modise, and the Executive Mayor, Dr. Nasiki Moya, will continue the statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tshwane. On my right-hand side is the city manager, Johan Medla. Next to him is the CFO, Gareth Munisi. Next to him is the Tsunami, Alderman MMC Kutie, and our youngest MMC, Mashadela. Extreme right is MMC Mohale for transport. Next to the executive mayor is MMC for utility, Bushielo, MMC Ramabolu for environment, MMC Modise. She's not my wife, for social development, because from time to time they say it's my wife. Over to Executive Mayor.
Thank you so much, Deputy Executive Mayor. Is everyone, can you hear me? All of you, awesome. Let me first greet you, the members of the media, and we thank you very much for being here. We know that maybe sometimes our notices don't give you enough time, but we do appreciate that you are here this morning. The Deputy Mayor, the MMCs, City Manager and CFO, and most importantly, the residents of Tshwane. I greet you this morning. Tomorrow, the multi-party government will mark the midpoint of our first 100 days in office. As we approach this milestone, we would like to provide updates on several key issues that are critical to the recovery and stabilization of our city. Our administration is committed to transparency and accountability, and today's briefing reflects our dedication to keep residents informed of both the progress we are making and the challenges we continue to face. Firstly, I would like to provide an update on the Eskom debt. As the residents are aware, when this administration took office, we inherited debt to Eskom in excess of 7 billion rands, which had grown from approximately 2.9 billion rands over the previous 18 months. This amount included over 700 million rands in interest. This has placed immense strain on the city's financial sustainability, as we have struggled to meet our current obligations to Eskom while trying to reduce the debt and pay the interest that was accruing. Today, however, I'm pleased to announce that the City of Tshwane has reached a landmark agreement with Eskom to settle this issue. This agreement, formalized as a court order on 26 November 2024, is a significant milestone in our journey to financial recovery and stability. Under the arrangement, we have agreed with Eskom that the debt of 6.667 billion will be ring-fenced and repaid over a 5-year period, with the first payment of 400 million rand scheduled for December 2024 and the last payment in March 2029. Alongside the ring-fencing of the historical debt, Eskom has also agreed to waive interest on this amount as long as we maintain the payment of current accounts within 30 days of billing. Thanks to efforts made to improve revenue collection, this can now be a reality. To ensure that we continue to meet the obligations set out in the court order, we will focus on revenue protection to ensure that residents who are able to pay their accounts are not allowed to get away with non-payment. This settlement signals a turning point as it allows us to turn our focus towards improving service delivery and enhancing revenue collection systems. On behalf of the Mayoral Committee, the city and the residents of Tshwane, I would like to thank Eskom as well as the Minister of Energy and Electricity, Dr. Hotzienzo Ramaphosa, for their support in reaching an agreement that allowed us to avoid a potentially devastating outcome had we proceeded with litigation. This agreement is a demonstration of what is possible when the city works together with all spheres of government in the collective interest of residents. Secondly, I would like to address the issue of the ongoing dispute on the wage increase backlog. The second court matter this administration inherited is the wage increase backlog, where the city was unable to implement wage increases agreed to under the SALGA collective agreement. I want to stress that this new administration is committed to the employees of our city and will do everything in our power to pay increases in line with our ability to do so. Over the past couple of weeks, we have attempted to find a mutually acceptable resolution to this issue with the representatives of both IMADU and SAMU. This included a mediation process with the CCMA, where we had hoped to find one another and avoid litigation. Unfortunately, IMADU decided to withdraw from the CCMA process while SAMU remained open to discussions. We respect that unions must do what they believe is in the interest of their members. Nonetheless, the failure to reach an agreement left us with no option but to continue with proceedings in the Labour Court last week. On 21 and 22 November 2024, we appeared before the Labour Court to review the decision to reject the city's applications for exemption from the 3.5% and 5.4% wage increases for the first and third years of the SALGA collective agreement. For the 3.5 wage increase, we are seeking a fresh evaluation by a new panelist as the application was rejected on procedural grounds without evaluating the merits of the application, effectively our inability to afford the increases. For the 5.4% increase, we have asked the Labour Court to overrule the decision to reject our exemption application considering the available evidence and our financial constraints. On both matters, the judgment is reserved. It is regrettable that we were not able to reach an out-of-court settlement with the unions, as the city is not opposed to increases in principle, but needs to ensure that any increases that are granted are affordable and will not plunge the city into further financial crisis. We remain open to engaging with unions and other stakeholders to explore sustainable solutions. Our aim is to find a mutually beneficial agreement that allows us to support workers while balancing the need to ensure the financial stability of the city. My apologies. Thirdly, I would like to provide an update on the Hammanskraal water project. Ensuring clean, potable water for the residents of Hammanskraal remains a top priority for this administration. For decades, residents have endured unsafe water conditions, an unacceptable reality that we are determined to change. On the operational front, progress continues with Module 1 of the Magalies Water Package Plant. This collaborative project being implemented by Magalies Water is a crucial component of our efforts to supply clean water to the region in collaboration with the National Department of Water and Sanitation. Despite some regrettable delays, progress has been made and the construction of Module 1 was completed in November and commissioned on 15th November. Importantly, however, the completion of construction did not mean that the water is safe for consumption yet. There is an ongoing process with Magalies Water to improve water pressure, allowing the city to flush the system of contaminated water. In this regard, key developments include installation of valves to separate areas where contaminated water from timber plant and clip drift plant were mixing, systematic flushing and scouring of pipelines to improve water quality. Approximately 80% of areas have been flushed, with only Kekana Gardens still in progress due to current insufficient water being supplied from Magalies. Regular water quality testing to ensure compliance with SANS 241 of 2015 standards is also happening. Our collaboration with Magalies Water and Department of Water and Sanitation continues to be instrumental in these efforts, and I want to express my appreciation to these entities for assistance with this project. The city is carefully monitoring progress and developments and remains committed to providing updates. We must ensure that this critical project stays on track to deliver clean water for the people of Hammanskraal. We will only formally launch the project once we are satisfied that the water is safe for consumption. We have said to the engineers that the moment they drink the water, we will drink the water before we give it to the communities to drink the water. While we await the completion of this project, I'm pleased to announce that last week at our council meeting on Thursday, the council adopted a decision to write off over 600 million rand in water-related debt. This is a big relief to Hammanskraal residents who suffer the financial burden of paying for water they could not safely consume. I want to thank councillors for supporting this decision in the interest of social justice. We cannot expect the residents of Hammanskraal to pay for what is unfit for consumption. Finally, I would like to share some updates on the Spaza shop food safety crisis. In the wake of recent foodborne illness outbreaks linked to unsafe practices in Spaza shops that led to the death of 28 children in Gauteng and 2 in the city of Tshwane, the city intensified its effort to regulate the sector and protect public health. In response to calls from the President to take action to address this crisis, and working closely with the provincial government, on 25th November 2024, the city of Tshwane made a decision to activate the city's Disaster Operations Center to coordinate a multi-sectoral response. The approach to this crisis entails re-registration of all Spaza shops in Tshwane to ensure their compliance with safety and health and safety guidelines as well as business practices. Thus far, we have received applications to register over 1,154 Spaza shops as of Friday morning. Meanwhile, our integrated bylaw enforcement teams continue to inspect Spaza shops, issuing fines and shutting down non-compliant businesses. These efforts highlight our commitment to ensuring that residents have access to safe and healthy food options. To strengthen these interventions, the city has introduced an online registration portal for Spaza shops, streamlining compliance processes and enhancing oversight. Finally, last week at our council meeting, we approved a draft informal trading and township economy bylaw for public consultation. This bylaw, which aligns with the standard draft bylaw on township economies gazetted by the Minister of COGTA, proposes stricter licensing requirements, enforces health and safety standards, and outlines penalties for non-compliance. It will also allow for the city to set quotas for the ownership of Spaza shops by locals. We encourage all stakeholders to participate actively in the public consultation process for the draft bylaw. Your input will help us shape policies that reflect community needs and priorities. This administration is dedicated to balancing enforcement with empowerment, supporting informal traders while safeguarding public health. Residents of Tshwane, as we approach the midpoint of our 100 days in office, I'm pleased with the progress we are making, but also aware of the work that lies ahead. From financial recovery to equitable service delivery, this administration is committed to building a Tshwane that works for all its residents. This is a journey of transformation, and it requires the collective effort of government, businesses, and communities. Together, we can achieve our vision of a financially stable, well-governed, and inclusive city that serves its residents with dignity and fairness. Thank you. I'll be happy to take questions.
Do you have any questions, please? Rapula? Okay.
My name is Tshwane Talks Online News. Anyway, I just want to ask, you said you have so far city has registered 1,400 Spaza shops, right? In this number, foreigners involved, and those rules that they put there, are they required? Do they meet the requirement? And how many locals have they been registered?
I'm Aaron Dure from the Ilisa newspaper. regarding also on the issue of Spaza shop that have been registered, I want to know the penalties or the consequences, because 1,400, I think it's a lucky number for the Spazas that are in Tshwane. So the time frame, have you set a time frame for those who will not be registered on this time? Are there penalties? What are the penalties? And then those who will be found dealing with shops which are registered, which are not registered, what are the consequences or penalties that they may suffer? And also the people who are, I see these other Spaza shops are not aligned in the retail shops, they are in the houses. Are there any laws that has been put by the city that there will be no Spaza shop operated in the houses, or they will continue operating in those houses as long as they are registered? We want to know clarity on that also.
Rapula?
This is Rapula from the Pretoria News. Mayor, you have been advocating for the ownership of Spaza shops to be given to locals. My question is, assuming that some of those who have been registered are foreigners, what will be the purpose of registering the foreigners if you have the facilities of Spaza shops for the locals?
Mariska?
Mariska from the Citizen. I just want to know, with regards to the salary increases and so on, do the workers know about the developments? And basically, you know, in the basic language, so they are not getting increases yet. So just confirm that. Thank you.
That's all. Okay.
Thank you so much. Let's start with Dima. So the amount as of Friday morning of Spaza shop that have been registered is 1,154. The number of that 1,154, over 600 of those are locals, and just over 500 are foreign nationals that have registered. Now, we need to separate the process of registration and licensing, and that will also touch with Rapula was raising. So the registration, basically, the president said we want to register all Spaza shops within 21 days from the day he made the announcement. This was an announcement that they must be registered. So basically, you present yourself, we have you on our database. That's basically what has been said. There's no gazette that accompanied the announcement, so we are just guided by that announcement. So what we have done in the city of Tshwane is that everyone can present themselves, and we've given them the documentation that they require to present to us when they come to register. And because there is also an online system, there's no way you can, filter who gets to register. And we're not controlling that people mustn't register, even if they are foreign nationals. In most cases, in Middlestad, there was a day where we had over 1,000 people that came. There was almost a stampede there, who came to register themselves. Most of those were foreign nationals who didn't have the paperwork. So most of them, they decided to turn back anyway. But the number that we have is that 1,154. It comprises of both the foreign nationals as well as the locals. The next step is the licensing part. So for licensing, that's when then we apply the bylaws of the city, where we say, in terms of our bylaws, whether you're a foreign national or a local, these are the requirements that you need to meet in order to be licensed. So that's the next phase, and that's the more involved phase. The phase that we are dealing with now is just when people are just presenting themselves. The second one, but Aaron, in terms of penalties, so the penalties, so as I was saying, the 21 days is for registration, and the president said if on the 22nd day, which is the 16th of December, a Spaza shop has not registered, we can close it down. That is the punitive measures to this, and we've been had of an extension, even though there's been calls when we're participating at the Gauteng IGR that should we as the city of Tshwane feel that we need an extension, we can apply for it, but that's not a decision that has been taken. So the punitive measure would be that we close down, and that's what the president said. However, while we are working towards that deadline, we're having a lot of empowerment workshops in the city of Tshwane, because we don't want a situation where people say we didn't hear the news or I didn't know what is required. So across the 7 regions, we've got empowerment workshops where we explain to both the owners, the current owners and the aspiring Spaza shop owners, how to register, what are the requirements in terms of our bylaws. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, we also have Imbizo, where we continue with the empowerment. So we then have to strike the balance. But when it comes to punitive measures, it's the fines. Our bylaw, the current one that we have, not the one that went to council, it details what should happen to a business that doesn't comply with our regulations. You would have seen us in the past 4 weeks. We've been joining the bylaw enforcement committee, where there we have our health officials, we've got officials from economic development and spatial planning, we've got from EMS, from TMPD. If a business doesn't comply with our bylaws, we do what is necessary. Sometimes it's the issue of the fine, sometimes it's an issue of taking the stock because the stock is either counterfeit or has expired. Sometimes we just have to close down the operation altogether. So it depends in terms of our bylaws, what is it, what is the fine that, or the punitive measure that fits whatever we have found in that business. In terms of the Rapula, I think we are not shy to say, as the city of Tshwane, with 22.8% of our residents living below poverty line and 38% of our residents being unemployed, we need to have an economic strategy that responds to that. And so we said, of all the sectors that we have in Tshwane, which ones are easily accessible in terms of economic opportunities that will assist us to alleviate the poverty that is in our communities. When we're presented with this opportunity, it's a crisis that emanated from children dying, but it also gives us an opportunity to review our economic strategy and our economic approach and how we want to develop and empower our people. We said this is an opportunity for us, which is why even in the draft bylaw that is out for public consultation, we have added it there that we want to reserve this sector for locals. So that is happening. Of course, we will be guided in terms of the foreign nationals. We will be guided by the provincial government and national government. For instance, MEC Maile has said, in Gauteng, we're going to be strict about the 5 million rand. In other provinces, they say that's not constitutional because there was a court order that said that that is not required for asylum seekers. We don't make all the laws, so province and national government will also guide us on this one, but from our side, we are committed to reserve this sector for locals. And in terms of Mariska, the salary increases, we are hoping that the unions have briefed their members. But if so far it's the issue that the judgment is reserved. I don't think, other than what everyone knows already, I don't think there's another a new set of information. But in terms of what now, we're just waiting for the court. I think what is important for us is that even when we started, this administration started, we said we're not going to fight with employees. It's just not productive. Also, we want a happy and healthy workforce. Yes, there are financial challenges, but that can't speak for us and for our commitment to make sure that our workforce is well taken care of. So we met with labor, and both sides, ourselves and labor, we committed that primarily we have a duty as politicians and officials to serve the residents of the city. and we need to find ways. It was unfortunate that the options we put on the table were not acceptable, leading us to go to Labour Court without having agreed on an approach or in terms of how we're going to pay. And so we then said, even if we go to Labour Court, say the judge says that this is not in our favor, we must pay. We're not going to appeal. We'll do what the judge says. In addition to that, we don't want a situation where we say, if the judge says, for instance, you don't have to pay at all, we're not going to take that. We will then see what is it that is possible that we can do based on the proposal that we made. So for us, it was important for the officials of the city to say, we do have commitment to do good by you or do right by you. However, there are financial constraints that if we take certain decisions, we're going to plunge the city into a financial crisis. Hence, it was important for us to talk. But let me allow my colleagues to add in terms of the questions that were raised.
I think you have responded to all the questions.
Okay.
Okay, are there any more questions, Commissioner?
Good morning, Mayor. It's Bonso Mutsipa from Kai News. I just want to know, after the 21-day period, how are you going to monitor that all the Spaza shops that exist in the city are actually registered? Are you going to go to them one by one? And even in the months to come, if someone decides to open a shop, how are you going to check that it's registered as well? Thank you.
Any other questions, please? Okay.
Right. So the first one, I must be honest, it's the announcement was made without the assessment of our capacity, but the plan is that if the president has made a pronouncement, we must implement it. So we're putting together teams that will make sure that there are physical verifications, that will have a database of the Spaza shops that have applied, and we compare with what is on the ground. So that is that part that we need to work on. But also when we do so, I think what is important is that, sorry, I just need to write down your second point. I think what is important is that we'll be doing two processes. One, those who have registered will then get started with the process of licensing them, while making sure that those who have not registered, they continue to register. Because as I was saying, the president didn't issue a gazette that says we're closing the registration of Spaza shops totally after 21 days. What he said is that because the source of the problem that is killing the children is among the shops that already exist. So have a way of controlling that at the source. So what we'll do, we'll continue to monitor those who have not registered. We're going to license those who have registered. But also if someone wakes up on the 17th of December and says, I have a business idea of having a Spaza shop, those people must be allowed to continue to register. But I think the whole idea that is behind the president's announcement is that let's have a way of clamping down the source of what is killing the children at the moment, which is what we are doing, that we're not only asking people to register, it must be accompanied by the inspections that we are doing, the ensuring that there's compliance in these shops and that there are no shops that are selling food that is not fit for consumption, that is not made in South Africa, because in Tshwane we find a lot of those that either it's manufactured in a bedroom of someone, like we've seen in Winterfeld on Friday, where we've got a factory, if you may call it that, or warehouse. It's not even labeled. We were tipped off by the community to say they are making juices there. I mean, the conditions of that whole thing. So warehouses like that must be clamped down. But I don't think it was punitive that, you know, after the 15th of December, no one can think of opening a business. But it's incumbent on us to make sure that we register as many people as possible, so that we don't find people who are outside, the process that's happening and end up being punished because they just couldn't get the information. So we do have a lot of responsibility in just coordinating our efforts and resources. Hence, from our side, we activated the Disaster Operations Center, because it's our easiest way to make sure that with not only wanting to prevent more deaths in the city of Tshwane. Two kids is too many for us. So we then said, let's take an extra step to make sure that we're also able to coordinate the resources that we have. They limited, I'm sure you've seen the MEC for health is saying that, for instance, in Tshwane, us and Ekurhuleni, we don't have enough health inspectors, for instance. So we also striking a balance with our limited resources, but that's the work that needs to follow now.
Alex?
Thanks. It's Alex Patrick from News 24. Apologies for my late query. You mentioned that the electricity issue was helped by the minister. Obviously, we saw what played out in Johannesburg, and in that case, they decided to step away from the courts and work together. What was the process in this case? I just wanted to understand, because you did mention through a court order. Was it a court order, or did you guys have the same kind of sit down with everyone? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so the conversation obviously started, I think it was my second day after the election, when we had a situation in the city of Tshwane where all our substations were off. So the following day we had a site visit with the minister to Kwaga. And part of the commitments that we both made, obviously, when you have the minister, you tell him all your problems. And so two commitments that he made that day with us as the city. One was that we don't need courts to talk to each other. We can, and he expressed that he had struggled to reach out to Tshwane previously. As a result, and I said, well, I'm sure, because it was before the NACO was appointed, but I knew that there was an appetite to talk. So he then made a commitment that we'll have that conversation so that we can see if we can stay out of the court in order to find an amicable solution. And secondly, there was a point about how do we then protect our revenue. Then from there, we had a meeting with Eskom, where we had our teams here, and they gave us their side of the story. We presented our side of the story, and there were two things that were important in the conversation. One was for us to look at our finances and say, what is it that we can afford? And what are our, conditions in terms of, or what are our terms that we can adhere to without getting the city into financial problems. And so that conversation, we were present in it. After the following conversation with technical teams that were looking at both the payment plan as well as the revenue protection, because the question is, yes, you can have your payment plan, but how will you sustain it? And I think that was an important part of the discussion. And so then the teams, they found each other in terms of, because when we started, we had three options where we can pay this in 3 financial years or 4 financial years or 5 financial years. Obviously, the 4 financial years was more the middle ground. Even that the middle ground wouldn't allow us the space that we required for us to recover financially. But the work wasn't done only with the conversation with the minister, but what he had done was to open the doors for us to have a discussion. Because of all the challenges and not, for instance, not meeting our our payment arrangements with Eskom, it wasn't easy even for our officials to have access to Eskom. So just having that discussion with the minister and him showing willingness to talk to us, then it made it easy for us to negotiate. So we didn't want to end it there, that, okay, the teams have met. It's always good to have protection of both entities. So going to court with an agreed settlement was very important for us. Hence, we then said, court, this is what we agreed on. Please certify it as a court order. That if we don't stick to the terms of the payment arrangement, we're defaulting basically, and that's not something that we want to find ourselves on. So the court order then was more from our side, a demonstration of our commitment that with the terms that we have said we will be able to afford, we will be able to adhere to it. But obviously we do need, you know, that monster behind us to say, geez, if we don't make the payment, this is the worst that could happen. But it was a process that got us to that, which involved the political leadership as well as the administrative leadership.
All right. Any more questions, guys? We're closing. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, executive. We're done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Get your salary, please.
This one is not mine. This is 5.4%.
Here you went.
Then I have problems now afterwards.